Some stories start just like any other day, but then turn into something extraordinary on a sunny afternoon in New York City. Under the luxurious glow of the Fifth Avenue storefronts, something was about to happen. Something no one could predict, but that would be impossible to forget in the heart of the city, where luxury and opulence set the rules. A modest-looking elderly woman stepped into Lester and Hunt Fine Jewelry. Her hesitant steps seemed out of place in that temple of exclusivity to the trained eyes of the salespeople. She was just someone who didn't fit the right profile. But what no one knew was that this woman carried a story, a connection, that would make the entire world pay attention. And in just a few minutes, an act of arrogance would pave the way for a twist that would change everything forever. Because sometimes karma doesn't come quietly. It arrives on a motorcycle wearing sunglasses and carrying a message that transcends any price tag. Before we continue this story, have you ever been underestimated because of your appearance or superficial judgments? Leave your answer in the comments and stay with me until the end to discover how this story took an unexpected turn and changed everything on Fifth Avenue, where luxurious storefronts and imposing facades draw admiring glances. The hurried crowd moves at its relentless pace. Among them is Patricia Taylor, a 75-year-old woman, walking calmly with a serene expression, dressed in simple yet well-kept clothing. Patricia didn't stand out in a place where designer brands and gleaming watches were practically uniforms, yet something in her eye exuded confidence, or perhaps it was the natural curiosity of someone about to explore uncharted territory. She stopped in front of Lester and Hunt Fine Jewelry. Michael Edwards behind the impeccably polished windows. Glimmers of gold and sapphire seemed to dance in the sunlight. Patricia hesitated for a moment, took a deep breath, and opened the heavy glass door, greeted instantly by the soft chime of bells, as if the space itself whispered, "Welcome to the world of luxury." Across the store, Michael Edwards, a senior salesman, noticed Patricia's entrance, known not only for his ability to close high-value sales, but also for his sharp, or rather biased, judgment of who was worth his time. Took note of her hesitant steps. He made a quick assessment. The simple attire, floral dress, and worn shoes painted a picture that in his mind didn't belong there. He exchanged a brief glance with a nearby colleague, who simply shook her head, insolent agreement, determined to handle the situation quickly and efficiently. Michael approached with a practiced smile, polite but cold, and a tone laced with condescension. "Good afternoon, ma'am. How may I assist you?" Patricia responded kindly. "I'm looking for a special gift, perhaps a pair of sapphire earrings." Michael needed a moment to full his instinctive reaction, but managed to mask it with a controlled smile. "Sapphire earrings. Of course, we have a few options." His tone made it clear that he found the request unlikely, but he decided to proceed nonetheless. As Patricia calmly followed Michael to the display counter, she was unaware that the growing tension in that elitist atmosphere was about to escalate in unexpected ways, and that fate had other plans for the day. "Here you go, ma'am. Please handle them carefully." Michael watched Patricia adjust the sapphire earrings in the mirror, his Rolex gleaming as he crossed his arms. His lips formed a tight smile that barely masked his disdain. "Ma'am," his voice carried that particular tone used by those who see service as condescension. "These pieces aren't really made for casual handling. They're quite exclusive, and..." If he extended his hand expectantly, "Perhaps I can show you something more suitable for your circumstances," Patricia continued, examining the earrings with careful appreciation. "The craftsmanship is exceptional." Michael let out a short, derived laugh. "Yes. Well, exceptional craftsmanship comes with an exceptional price. These aren't exactly the kind of accessory one wears to." He paused, his eyes scanning her modest floral dress, like a counterfeit detector inspecting fake bills. "Whatever senior center events you might attend." Several nearby customers bristled at his tone. Jake, the junior associate, busied himself with a display case while listening intently. "I'm quite familiar with fine jewelry," Patricia replied calmly. "I've worked with high-quality accessories for many years." Oh, Michael's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Were you perhaps working in the wardrobe of one of those establishments?" He cast a respiratorial glance at a wealthy couple nearby who uncomfortably averted their yes because these particular pieces require not only appreciation, but he adjusted his tailored blazer the means to back up that appreciation. Patricia met his gaze evenly. I'd still like to try them on properly. Michael's polished demeanor cracked slightly. Let me be direct since you seem to be missing the rather obvious cues. These earrings cost $30,000. He enunciated every word, as if speaking to a child that's more than your entire wardrobe handbag, and likely your monthly Social Security check. Combined, I have a responsibility to protect our merchandise. From his eyes flicked to her worn purse, aspirational shopping browsing. An older gentleman in a Tomford suit turned toward them, looking horrified now. See here, Sir Michael, interrupted with practiced authority. I'm handling this situation. He turned back to Patricia, his voice hardening. Perhaps Xiles would be more your speed. They have a lovely selection of cubic zirconia, much more. He smiled, age and income appropriate. Patricia began, carefully removing one earring. The price isn't. It's not just about the price. Michael interrupted sharply, his tone cutting enough to slice through diamonds. It's about understanding one's place in the social hierarchy. And this had gestured around the pristine store with manicured hands is clearly several tax brackets above yours. I've been in luxury retail long enough to spot the difference between a serious client and someone living out a pretty woman fantasy. He took the earrings now, if you'll excuse me. I have actual clients who can afford to be here. The store fell into an uncomfortable silence. Even the armed security guard by the door was shifting uncomfortably. Patricia stood firm, maintaining her dignity. Young man, please. Michael interrupted, his voice thick with disdain. Let's not turn this into a scene. The exit is right behind you. And next time, he added with a cruel smile that reached his eyes, stick to window shopping. It's free and doesn't waste anyone's valuable time. At that moment, the unmistakable rumble of a motorcycle engine sliced through the thick tension. The security door buzzed open. But karma, like the most flawless diamonds, reveals itself when the light hits just right. And in exactly 30 seconds, Michael would learn that the true cost of arrogance cannot be measured in carats. Suddenly, the sound of a motorcycle engine echoed across the marble floor of Lester and Hunt Fine Jewelry, silencing every murmur in the store. A tall figure dressed in a brown leather jacket stepped through the security doors, carrying a helmet. Under one arm, his presence seemed to shift the atmosphere, making the air heavy with anticipation. Michael turned, automatically, toward the new visitor, and his expression shifted from utter disdain to astonished recognition. In an instant, the same professional smile he'd withheld from Patricia now spread across his face like wildfire on dry grass. Mr. Reeves, what an unexpected honor. Michael nearly stumbled over his own feet as he moved away from Patricia. Welcome to Lester and Hunt. I would be delighted to show you our latest collection of, but Keanu Reeves wasn't looking at Michael. His eyes found Patricia, and the warm smile that spread across his face radiated more warmth than all the store's spotlights combined. Mom, he said simply, crossing the room to embrace her. Sorry I'm late. Fifth Avenue traffic was brutal. The word mom thundered through the store like a bolt of lightning. The color drained from Michael's face so quickly, he had to steady himself against the display case. The wealthy couple who had pretended not to notice the earlier exchange suddenly found their jewelry choices incredibly interesting. Oh, it's all right, dear Patricia replied, her voice carrying the same quiet dignity she had maintained through all of Michael's abuse. This young man was just explaining to me about knowing one's place. Keanu turned to Michael, his expression calm, but his eyes carried a weight that made the salesman involuntarily step back. Keanu's voice was low, yet it echoed through the now silent store. And what place would that be? Michael's mouth opened closed several times, but no words came out. Sweat began to bead on his forehead. Despite the store's impeccable climate control, I had no idea, Mr. Reeves. If I had known. That's the problem, isn't it? Keanu interrupted, his voice still gentle but firm. You didn't know. You didn't know she designed costumes for some of Hollywood's biggest films. You didn't know she raised me alone, teaching me the value of treating everyone with dignity. You knew nothing about her, but you decided she didn't belong here. Jake, the junior associate, stepped forward. Mrs. Taylor. If you're still interested, I'd be honored to show you our full sapphire collection. We have some stunning new pieces that would complement your eyes. Beautifully, Michael shot Jake a look of betrayal, but Keanu nodded in approval. At the young associate's gesture, Patricia gently touched her son's arm, actually. Dear, I think I've seen enough jewelry for today. Perhaps we can grab a coffee at that little place on the corner. Keanu smiled, understanding in his eyes. Of course, Mom, do they still make your favorite lemon scones? As they turned to leave, Keanu paused and looked back at Michael, who seemed to be trying to vanish into High's expensive suit. You know what's interesting about jewelry? Keanu asked, his voice clear as it echoed through the silent store. The true value isn't always in what shines the brightest. Sometimes it's about character, dignity, and how you treat others. My mom taught me that. He smiled at Patricia. There's no price tag on that lesson. The security door buzzed one last time as mother and son left, leaving behind a profound silence, broken only by the ticking of Michael's expensive watch, counting the seconds of his now reconsidered career. The store manager, who had emerged from his office during the commotion, cleared his throat. Michael, my office now. Jake watched through the window as Keanu helped his mom onto the motorcycle, handing her an extra helmet. He couldn't air their laughter, but he could see the joy on their faces turning back to the store. Jake noticed the wealthy couple who had witnessed everything now looking at their luxury purchases with slightly different eyes. Sometimes the most valuable things in life don't come in a signature blue box. Jake watched as Keanu carefully placed the helmet on Patricia and helped her onto the motorcycle. Her laughter, still inaudible from inside the store door, was visible in the relaxed and joyful expression on her face. Keanu adjusted the straps on her helmet with the care of a devoted son before climbing onto the bike himself. The two rode off, leaving behind the tension of the earlier moment and carrying an aura of serenity and strength that seemed to brighten the entire block. Jake sighed and turned his gaze back to the store, where customers continued murmuring among themselves. Michael remained frozen by the counter, his hands now trembling as they rested on the edge of the display case. The artificial smile he'd worn like armor had completely vanished. He looked smaller, diminished by the scene he had just witnessed. Jake calmly cleaned a nearby display case but couldn't resist making a comment. Well, that was educational. Michael slowly turned his head, his eyes shooting a mix of irritation and shame at the younger associate. Don't start, Jake. Jake shrugged, leaning casually against the display case. I'm not saying anything you don't already know. Just that. He nodded toward the store's still swinging door. That was a masterclass in how to be human. Michael let out a heavy sigh, but before he could respond, the store manager, Mr. Dempsey, emerged from his office with a stern look. He locked eyes with Michael, his expression heavy with disappointment. Michael, we need to talk. Meeting the manager now. Michael glanced at Jake, who offered a small nod as if to say asterisk, good luck in the manager's office. The air was thick with tension. Mr. Dempsey closed the door and walked slowly to his chair, sitting down with a rigid posture. Michael remained standing, unable to find the words to begin. You know, Michael Dempsey began, his voice low but filled with authority. When you started here, I saw potential in you. I thought I'd found someone who understood the balance between exclusivity and respect. But today, you threw all of that away. Michael opened his mouth to respond, but the manager raised a hand to silence him. No, you're going to listen today. You put use at the center of a storm. Not only did you humiliate a customer, but you did so without even bothering to understand her. It doesn't matter who she was. It doesn't matter if she was Keanu Reeves's mother or an ordinary housewife. The point is, you failed miserably. Michael lowered his head, the weight of the manager's words pressing down on him. I made a mistake, he said in a barely audible tone. Yes, you did, Dempsey. The wealthy couple said, leaning forward. But a mistake like this isn't something we can just sweep under the rug. Your attitude today showed who you really are, and that doesn't align with this store's values. Meanwhile, out on the sales floor, Jake continued, assisting customers with his warm and genuine approach. The wealthy couple who'd witnessed everything walked up to him. So how long have you worked here? The man asked, trying to lighten the mood. Jake smiled, long enough to know people are more important than price tags. The woman looked at him, clearly impressed. You know, after today, I think we'll be rethinking what truly Matters Jake nodded, watching as they walked out of the store hand in hand, leaving behind the jewelry they had previously considered purchasing. Outside, Keanu and Patricia arrived at the cafe. She had mentioned the place was simple, but cozy, filled with the aroma of fresh coffee and lemon scones. As they sat down, Patricia looked at her son with a playful smile. "You know, you made a scene back there, don't you?" Keanu chuckled, taking her hand. "Sometimes, Mom, a scene is exactly what people need to wake up." She shook her head with a sigh, but couldn't hide the pride in her. "Yes, I just hope he learned something from it." Keanu shrugged. "If he didn't learn today, the world will take care of it. But what's most important is that you were treated as you deserve." Patricia took a sip of her tea and gazed out the window. Her heart warmed not just by her son's gesture, but by the lesson that moment had taught everyone around them. Because sometimes the real shine isn't in what glitters, but in how we choose to light up the world around. Now we want to hear from you. Have you ever been underestimated or disrespected? How did you handle it? Share your story in the comments below. Your experience might inspire others to face similar situations with courage and dignity. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that remind us what truly matters in life.